Okay, so before we dive in, I think it's important for us to talk a little bit about what fly fishing is and maybe how it's different from other forms of fishing you've seen in the past. So, what is fly fishing? And more importantly, how does it differ from other forms of fishing you may have seen? Well, for starters, fly fishing is the method of enticing a fish using imitations of their natural food sources. So, this could be small insects or fish that they would normally eat in their habitat. In fly fishing, we're using flies, and these help us imitate the small insects and little fish that fish may be feeding on. So, in order to create these, we make them, they're all hand tied using animal hair, fur, fabrics, and this is how we imitate these little insects. Whereas in other forms of fishing, you might be more familiar with lures or worms or bait. I remember when I was young, I used to see people casting fly rods, and I thought, like casting fly fishing, they must be replicating a fly flying around in the sky. And I learned later on that that's a misconception. What they're actually doing is they're just trying to get the line out there so that they can land the fly on the water where the fish are. And the other thing that we need to know is in order to use those flies and get them out there and hopefully get them in front of a fish, is that you have to be able to have the right equipment to throw them because they're virtually weightless. Sometimes they're so small you can barely see them. So in order for us to be able to get them out there far enough to meet the fish, we have to use the right equipment. And in fly fishing, in order to do that, we use a weighted line. That's what makes it very different from other forms of fishing because in fly fishing, the line is weighted, whereas in conventional or spin fishing, it's typically the lure or the bait at the end of the line that has the weight and that carries it out there. So the main difference between conventional fishing and fly fishing is that in conventional, the weight is on the end of the fly line. When you're casting the spin rod out there, it's really just a flick of the wrist because there's so much weight at the end of the line, it carries itself. Whereas in fly fishing, the weight's all in the fly line. So we have to cast the fly line out there.